Oh, hello there. Okay, good morning. So if you were here this morning, thanks for coming in and early if you're at the 7 o'clock session, and thanks for staying late if you're at the 6 a.m. There was quite a lot of information that I threw around, so I thought maybe if I just recap it a little bit more concise and clearer for you, and just make sure that we've got the main points covered, and then we can dig deeper into any of the other stuff that you might want me or Nat to at a later stage. But Nutrition 101, I guess that's a real cliche sort of thing of saying, but the main thing to think about was that quality of food and nutrient density versus calorie density. And the example I used was like if you've got 100 calories, which is the currency for energy, 100 calories from donuts versus 100 calories from fruit and veggies, the same number, but one's got a lot more nutrients than the other. So I guess the main point when you talk nutrition is just try and get as much nutrients as you can in your diet, and try and reduce the amount of processed and calorie-dense foods that you can. A little bit's fine, and I guess there's that rule of 80-20 or 90-10, but the more nutrient-dense foods you have, the better you feel, the more full you'll often feel, and because you've got less processed foods going into you as well, you'll probably know exactly what foods are good for you and what foods don't sit quite right with you. Talking on calories, there's, I guess the key things to think about was there's those 3 macronutrients: protein, fats, carbs, not cab, carbs. And then I just added that 4th one, alcohol. And then each of these, which is pretty much any food or anything that you consume, is made up of one of these 4 things, if not a combination of more than one. And so for 1 gram of each of these, it equates to a certain number of calories. So protein, 4 calories, fats, 9 calories, carbohydrates, 4 again, and then alcohol is 7. And so talking on calories, it's there's a calculator that you can use, and I'll put that in the link below. But this calculator sort of gives you an idea of your, and you've probably heard of it, BMR. Not BMI, BMI is your body mass index. That's what the doctors will use when they take your height and your weight, and they give you a number, and they say, okay, yeah, you're 26, or you're 31, or you're 17, or whatever that number is. And that BMI sort of represents, I guess, the generalization if you've got the right amount of weight to your body height and type. But we're talking BMR, which is talking about your basal metabolic rate. And the basal metabolic rate is sort of saying, in the day, if you were just to be at rest, so just lying on your back or not doing anything, how much energy would you burn? So you do this calculation, it'll give you a number. Let's just say it's 1,000. Oh no, make it 2,000. Just for easy numbers. So 2,000 calories a day that you can utilize, and out of that, it can be made up of any of this. So if you look at that, like food recommendations, I've put like the protein, fats, and carbohydrates next to the meals. So then that way you sort of get to understand what it sort of represents on your plate. You don't need to track it or count it every time, but it's just more about understanding, just like you would with your spending. Hopefully you're pretty good with your money. Sometimes they're not if there's a sale. But you sort of know how much is in your bank account, and so how much you've got available every week budget-wise to spend. The same with this. If you know how much you've got available, then you'll make probably better decisions, or maybe more informed decisions on how you want to spend that currency, which is calories in this case. So you can calculate this online. I said to the ladies this morning, most of you will probably have a sedentary lifestyle. It'd be good to say that you're active, but you probably keep the active for people that are landscapers or builders or courier drivers or people that are actually quite active for the majority of their working day. Otherwise, if you're sitting in the office, you're probably more of a sedentary lifestyle. And the reason you need to know that, it affects the number that comes out of this. So it might be times, the BMR might be times 1.3, 1.6, even 2, depending on sedentary, active, really active. So whatever that number comes out with, That sort of telling you how much your currency that you've got to spend, and then you can look at how you want to spend it in the day. And so I went over like meals. You could do it in threes, so like your breakfast, lunch, dinner. You could do it in fours, where you have breakfast, maybe a mid-morning breakfast, lunch, dinner, or however you want. And then I use the example of people that are competing in, say, bodybuilding, or actually in just, long endurance events and stuff like that. They might do 6 meals, 5. There is no rule, but let's just say 6. That way they might be able to break this up, and they might have 2 meals that represent sort of your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This gets all thrown out the window if you do something like intermittent fasting, and you've got, say, 4 meals that you can spread those out in easy. Like, say it'd be 500 calories per meal. But like we all know that's not that simple, because sometimes you have snacks in between. You might have that biscuit at morning tea. You might have that 3:30 itis, and then you just decide to eat everything. Or you might come home from work and you have the wine and then everything else, and the cheese and the crackers. But in an ideal world, that's how easy you'd break it down. So if we go back to what the majority of people do, which is probably that 3 meals, and then let's just say they have 2 snacks, one here, okay, let's say 3, and then 1 post-dinner. Well, say if you've got your calories that are available to you, then you can quite easily sort of budget that. So you say 400 for lunch, then your snack 1 might be 200, snack 2 might be 200, snack 3 might be 200. And if my maths is wrong, it is. Let's just say you can have more here. I think that's going to work out to be 2,000. That's how you could structure your day. And I guess if you get that, then I think it just makes it a little bit easier when you actually look at how you want to load your food in the day. You might not be much of a breakfast eater, so you might have a bigger lunch or a bigger dinner. Or you might not be a dinner eater, so you might have a bigger lunch and a few more snacks. But at the end of the day, if we're talking, for one of the goals might be weight loss. If you're talking weight loss, it's always going to be a calorie deficit. If you're talking performance and improving your strength and improving your recovery, you might not want to have such a severe calorie deficit. And all I mean by calorie deficit is you're having less than what you're doing. So say you might be putting in 2,000 in the day, but you might be taking away 3,000 due to everything that you're doing. That would leave you in a deficit of 1,000, right? So that's literally talking calories. It looks like a lot of science and stuff, but really it's just common sense budgeting. If you think of it like money, I think it will be quite easy. If we touch on keto, the keto diet or ketogenic diet could be called the Atkins diet as well, but it's literally just a low carbohydrate, moderate protein, and then a high fat diet. And I think this morning, one of you was saying that you've tried it. It was quite hard to get the fats in there, which is true. You end up having olive oils, or you end up having more butter, or it's high fat foods, nuts, bacon. The idea with keto actually, and hopefully we won't have time, the idea with keto is that it takes your body from utilizing glucose, which is sugar, as its main source of energy, and it utilizes a thing called ketone bodies, which is the byproduct of it breaking down fats primarily as an energy source. So the reason keto was not invented, but was utilized in the lab and stuff, was to try and help with epilepsy. Then, like Dr. Atkins found out that it's actually really good for balancing blood sugar levels. So if you find that you have lots of cravings, especially middle afternoon, the keto diet's quite useful because you're not really having any sugars or any carbohydrates, so your blood sugar levels stay quite constant. The biggest downfall, I think, well, no, not downfall, one of the hardest things to achieve is just adequate amounts of vegetables and fiber, because vegetables and fiber sort of tie into each other. But that's a lot of places, that is where you find that you get a lot of your nutrients, your vitamins from. So when you're not having those, because you can only sort of sit in this like sub-10 area, it gets quite hard to pump those numbers up adequately enough. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it, and there's a lot of people that do it, but I usually use this plus some supplementation to sort of get them to those adequate numbers. Supplements, touching on them, there's a lot of supplements out there, and there's some that are really useful for some people, but it's such a case-by-case system. So if you've just got a crap ton of supplements like I do at home, you probably would only need maybe 2 or 3 of them, and the rest of them would maybe have a use depending on different times of your life or the year or even just your menstrual cycle. But there are some ones that you can sort of like, not guarantee, but they've got a high probability that they'll actually be useful for you. And those are like magnesium. I'll put it somewhere here. Magnesium. You could say that omega-3 or fish oils is useful, but then if you're having fish in your diet, fatty fish like salmon and some other stuff, they might be fine. So magnesium, I'd say vitamin Bs, so like a B complex. And then there's something like zinc might be useful, but that's questionable. Depends on the person. Look, most of the stuff you can get in your diet, if your diet is pretty robust and whole food focused, so unless you're eating really shit processed food, this might be a challenge, but again, case by case. Iron might be something that you supplement depending if you're, well, I guess if you're vegan or vegetarian, it's quite hard. I say quite hard, it can be done, but it just depends on if you're having enough of the vegetables that actually contain enough iron. But in terms of supplements, the only other thing would be, let's say protein powder. And protein powders are not all equal, and I said to you this morning, stuff from the US is usually way, way sweeter and usually less or average quality compared to some of the stuff we get here. Mostly because the whey protein that we have here is from grass-fed cows. Overseas, that's one of their selling points for the more premium protein. So what we have here, just off the shelf, is actually better than what you'd buy premium over in the States. So that's one thing to note. But there's rice protein, there's pea protein, which Nat has, and then there's soy protein. And I'll probably say it in that order, like whey protein is good, brown rice protein, if it's organic, is good. Some of the lesser quality stuff, not so good. Because you've just got to think of where it's coming from. So if you think Asia and they haven't got many restrictions on what they spray on their crop and stuff like that, then yeah, okay, for pesticides and stuff, you might get a cheap brown rice protein, but it might be just full of other craps that you, well, may or may not find affects you. So it goes whey, and then it goes rice, brown rice, and it goes pea, and then the last one I'll probably say is soy. Soy's the one that sort of more and more people are saying, oh, probably stay clear of. A, because it sometimes doesn't sit very well in their gut, and then B, because there are a lot of sort of crops that are sprayed with lots of other random stuff, and it can mimic estrogen as well, which for most females you already have enough of. But whey protein, yeah, you can't go wrong with that unless you're sort of dairy intolerant. Rice protein, fine, and pea protein you can get easily enough. So I'll chuck some links down below, and you guys can like have a look at those. But other than that, supplement-wise, man, you might just be throwing money at it, and it might give you like a 1% improvement, but it's probably not the thing to focus on. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're like low on energy, don't look with a microscope there. Maybe just take a step back and think maybe my sleep isn't as good as it could be. Maybe I'm a little bit too stressed at the moment. Maybe I'm overtraining. Maybe my nutrition's not on point. Maybe I just need a holiday. Those are the type of things I would say, talking sustainability, which would be way more, will have such a bigger impact on a positive outcome than one capsule you take, or changing that bread from a paleo bread to a keto bread. It's those little things, yeah, they do count, but not for as much as you think. Other than that, look, happy to answer any questions in that as well. Just keep working hard. Peace.